When I was in kindergarten, my teacher had this activity called Princess for a Day, where a student in the class was chosen to be a prince or a princess. We got to wear a crown, choose the books that were read that day, and other activities that we wanted to do. I always wanted to be princess for the day, because who doesn't want to boss people around and have a paper crown with your name on it? The idea of ruling over loyal subjects kind of led me towards this month's video. With rumors of another Sofia Coppola/Kirsten Dunst collaboration, I've been thinking about period dramas. There has been multiple period dramas around popular historical figures that are women. These women are portrayed in their media as just like us, and do a good job of having us relate to teenage girls/women from hundreds of years ago. Now, this video won't spend a lot of time discussing every event in each woman's life. So let's talk about the relatable historical figures, Catherine the Great, Jane Grey, and Marie Antoinette. To discuss these three figures, I'm looking at the 2006 film Marie Antoinette, directed by Sofia Coppola, Hulu's The Great, airing from 2020 to 2023, and My Lady Jane, the 2024 Amazon Prime television series based on the 2016 novel by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. Marie Antoinette was the Queen of France in the 18th century. She was an archduchess from Austria who got married off to King Louis XVI. Louis became king 4 years later, and she became queen. Now, Marie wasn't the most liked in France during this time period, and was known as Madame Deficit. France was going through a financial crisis, and she was blamed because of her spending and opposition to financial reforms. She ended up being the last queen of France before the monarchy fell during the French Revolution. She was taken prisoner, and France became a republic. She was executed in 1793, months after being taken prisoner. The 2006 film Marie Antoinette is based on Antonio Fraser's 2001 biography, Marie Antoinette, The Journey. Sofia Coppola wasn't a stranger in making a film centered around a young girl/woman, as she had already made The Virgin Suicides and Lost in Translation. The structure of Marie Antoinette was different from your typical biopic, and told a story that sticks in your mind even after you watch it. And the behind the scenes of Marie Antoinette, it mentions a misconception of the French queen.
Power of the propaganda machine is such that even the late 18th century propaganda against that woman still has potency today, still. And Sofia, it'll be interesting, the book was written and now Sofia is making her beautiful film. And it'll be interesting to see whether anything can dismantle that propaganda that has condemned her since she was a young woman.
She was the first victim of bad PR, you know. They hadn't really sussed out PR. In fact, the revolutionaries, they were very good at it, because a lot of the lies about Marie Antoinette, I mean, and some of them were true, but they exaggerated things. You know, the famous line about let them eat cake, which she never uttered, but was in kind of caricatured cartoons that the revolutionary propagandists would put about, and that had a heavy influence on public opinion.
Catherine the Great comes to Russia from Germany, and does a coup d'etat to take the crown away from Peter. She ruled Russia from 1762 to 1796, and was a proponent for change, wanting to bring Enlightenment ideas to Russia and move the country forward. The Great was a television show based on the play by Australian playwright Tony McNamara. That name might sound familiar, as he was the writer on Yorgos Lanthimos' The Favourite. He liked the story of politics and personal life mixing, and wanted to bring a darker, humorous tone. It was repeatedly emphasized how this series wasn't historically accurate, even writing an occasionally true story in the opening credits. The Great has a cheeky tone, filled with humor while being dramatic over the real events. My Lady Jane depicts Jane Grey, who was briefly the Queen of England in the 16th century. Her cousin is Edward VI, who is king. However, he dies and names her his successor. She's nicknamed the 9 Days Queen. She loses the throne because of her cousin Mary, who becomes queen and has her executed. In this mythical adaptation, there are two groups of people: Ethians, who are humans that can take animal form, and Veridity, who are regular humans. Ethians have been treated poorly in England, so this TV series follows the events leading to Jane getting the throne and all that entails. This differs from the other two with it being a romantasy, a mixture of a romance and a fantasy. However, it's more than that. There's this idea of what if with Jane Grey, because she was never given the chance to be in power. This TV series does not treat Jane as a damsel in distress. instead exploring her autonomy and the possibility of her becoming a strong queen for England. This adaptation has a comedic narrator, even saying, Jane could have been the leader England needed, but instead history remembers her as the ultimate damsel in distress. Fuck that. What if history was different? According to Entertainment Weekly, Gemma Burgess and Meredith Glynn, the showrunners, say, "You made the Ethian and Veridity conflict such a powerful metaphor for the Protestant Catholic conflict in Tudor England. What made that a valuable touch point, and why did you want to dig even deeper into those parallels? Part of it is that we were leaning on the fantasy genre to an extent, but we wanted to take the genre and subvert expectations, where there is this divide in the kingdom. When you really drill down, it's completely arbitrary, like almost all divisions that humans have ever erected. We love to point the finger at someone else and say, you are different. It was such an elegant metaphor in the book, and we felt that by leaning into it, we could explore it more. We're really interested in ideas of power and identity. We never wanted the metaphor to overwhelm the narrative." Meredith says, "We also think that it's one of the responsibilities of great storytelling to say something important about the world that we live in. So while the show is about this wonderful character in Jane, it is also saying something about our world." While none of these adaptations are built on historical accuracy, all three have the background to explore the characterization of three women from different time periods. I want to focus on what girlhood/womanhood means for the three leads. Marie Antoinette comes to France as a teenager and is naive of what's to come. She has been sent off to marry Louis. She arrives in France with her friends in a baby blue carriage, which baby blue represents innocence and new beginnings. When Marie arrives, she has to say goodbye to her friends. She isn't allowed to keep anything from her old life. Marie Antoinette has everything a girl could want, but it doesn't serve as a distraction from the struggles she's going through. There's one scene where her mom writes a letter to Marie warning her for not having a child. In this moment, you see Marie start to cry. She spends her days throwing parties and consuming treats. Marie seems to be all about having fun and enjoying herself. From what I've gathered from Marie Antoinette, I do think she cared about the French public and their struggles and wasn't this arrogant queen. Marie Antoinette is shown to have a relationship with numerous ladies at court. She has women to hang out with around court, which I find important. A significant romantic relationship shown in the film is the one that Marie Antoinette has with Axel Fersen. She meets him in Paris and they hook up later in the film. Count Fersen contrasted Louis with being more confident and definitely more fun. It allowed her to have someone that was taking life lightly. It is mentioned that she spends $50,000 in a month, and her brother comes to tell her to ease her spending, gambling, partying, and even hanging with the Duchess. A moment that signifies people at court turning on Marie Antoinette was applauding. At Versailles, people didn't clap after performances, and Marie Antoinette claps, which has the audience join in. However, when she's losing favor, they no longer clap when she does. When the protesters come to Versailles, she makes the decision to stand by her husband. When she eventually leaves, her goodbye to Versailles parallels the hello, as she's leaving in a carriage and she's looking out the window. Katarzyna Paszkiewicz writes in her book, Genre, Authorship, and Contemporary Women Filmmakers, the chapter Genre on the Surface, Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. While the film clearly dramatizes the opposition between private and public persona, a common trope in both male and female-oriented royal biopics, it overemphasizes women's traditional orientation to home, marriage, and motherhood, displaying public ambition and achievement onto male characters. In the cultural framework of 18th century France, marriage and motherhood, and not public accomplishments, are Marie Antoinette's ultimate task and fulfillment. Her body is not her own, it belongs to the world of politics. Marie Antoinette was a teenager that grew up throughout the film. She was sent off to marry a man she didn't know, and had to learn how to find satisfaction in a choice that she had no say in. She had to hear others gossip when she hadn't had a child yet, and try not to let it get to her too much. Marie Antoinette tries to have fun in her time at court and finds enjoyment in her new life. Regarding Catherine, she was sent to marry Peter and be a loyal wife. By launching the coup, she realized she wants to rule Russia and improve the lives of the people there. According to a Vanity Fair interview with Elle Fanning, conducted by J.C. Dunn, she asks about the balance between confidence and naivete and if it was a hard balance to strike. Elle replies, "The role challenged me in a way that I haven't been challenged before. As a character, Catherine has one of my favorite qualities, which is that she's extremely arrogant. She has a huge ego and doesn't apologize for it, which was so fun to play. But she also questions herself and has these weaknesses. These moments of really not knowing if she's up for the challenge too, which was important to me." Regarding her youth, Elle adds, "Her most important quality too is her youth. Youth is such a big factor in the decisions she makes. And sometimes they're a bit rash, but she's young and she's learning. And she's a different woman at the end of it." When Catherine arrives at court, she quickly learns the social structure. She doesn't have input in her husband, Peter's decisions. She's expected to hang with the other ladies at court, and realizing they don't share common interest. She tries to get the ladies to be more interested in reading, asking if they've read The Social Contract, and they say they don't read and that it's dull. Catherine isn't interested in sitting around all day and gossiping. She wants to find a way to be fulfilled. Catherine becomes close to Mariel, and she sticks by her through everything. Catherine gets a lover, Leo, from Peter, and they have a lot in common. It is interesting that the way to make Catherine happy was to get her a lover. Like love would solve Catherine's dissatisfaction. To be fair, Leo does make Catherine's life at court easier. She falls in love with him, but her love for Russia will always come first. Leo is captured by Peter and is killed during the coup. Catherine has rumors spread around court that she fucked a horse. That becomes a running joke for the rest of the show. Peter asks for people's opinions in season 1, and everyone talks about how they want him to kill himself, end serfdom, and the war. Peter seems naive to the world around him in season 1 and doesn't really care genuinely about feelings outside of his own. The show does a good job of demonstrating how intelligent Catherine is. Catherine in season 1 is doing a lot of strategizing and planning for the coup. Catherine loses Leo because of her need to be queen at the end of season 1. Catherine gets Russia as she wins the standoff with Peter in the first episode of season 2. In season 2, Catherine is known to be just as cutthroat as Peter, even though she tries to act like she's different. That's that arrogance Elle mentioned. Catherine isn't really liked by members of the court, which I think is this conflicting thing where to be a leader you have to be okay with not being liked by everyone. Also a woman, which means that she's being doubted at every turn. In season 2, Catherine's mom comes to town and you can see the dynamics between the two. Understandably, Catherine cares about her mother's opinion. This was the same in Marie Antoinette, with her caring about what her mom says. When her mom visits, their costuming seems to clash, representing how different the two of them are. Her mom wants her to be happy being a wife, and that's the last conversation she has with Catherine. Catherine is due to have Paul, her son, and she does have a sweet convo with Peter about being parents, and all this is made worse with Peter hooking up with her mom. Her mom falls out of the window to her death during their hookup scene. Season 3 feels like a major shift from the other 2 seasons, all of it beginning with the title cards. Before they didn't show people's faces, but now they do. Catherine's a mother and has grown in the last 2 seasons. She has confidence. Oslo gets shot in the premiere, which the show does feel a bit different without him. He was a big part of the coup and now he's gone. Peter and Catherine's love, despite the betrayal, is going strong, with Peter not wanting to hook up with Georgina anymore and is loyal to Catherine. This season seems the most political, with Peter's stunt double going around and having the peasants turn on her. Archie's behind it all, which doesn't help when she tries to outlaw murder, which people don't want. Catherine is trying to implement her own ideas and changes. Peter decides to help the former king of Sweden get his country back and assemble an army, which leads to his death. Catherine's grief is a major part of the season as she tries to hide Peter's death, telling the court that they're invading Sweden and ignoring that Peter's dead. Catherine sees a play making fun of her in the audience and begins crying, which leads to her finally accepting he's dead. She lost the love of her life in front of her and still has things that need to be done. One policy she allows is divorce, which leads to problems with women killing themselves because they're left with nothing, and she edits the rules. She allows women to have some of their ex-spouse's estate. Her costuming during this season represents her mood as she begins wearing darker colors after Peter's death. In the final episode, Catherine has a plan to spread different rumors about the fake Peter and Pugachev to destroy his base and also win approval for her. Pugachev ends up dying though. The series ends with Catherine in black dancing to rock music, and it feels so goofy but also very freeing. The Great depicts the growth of Catherine, from a teenager to an adult. She comes to court eager to marry and meet the love of her life, and even though Peter doesn't make it till the end, she's becoming the leader Russia needed. Jane becomes queen, but she doesn't have this need for power. She talks about how she doesn't even want to be married and is interested in medicine. She's intelligent, and Jane wants to have some control over her life. However, she doesn't seek that through being queen. She didn't want to be given the throne by her cousin Edward, who suddenly dies, but isn't actually dead, who takes advantage of this power by trying to bring about change to England. She tries to have Ethians live in peace among humans, which just allows the powerful people in court to go against her and team up with Mary. Her family is a big part of what she does, as her mothers and sisters are pretty important to this particular story. Marie Antoinette and Catherine's family aren't with her, as both are alone as they go to another country for marriage. Jane has her sisters and her mother with her, and that does make a difference. She doesn't have the same isolation with having to feel so alone while everything around her is falling apart. Regarding her relationship with her mother, she sticks by her, and while she isn't the greatest, she's always trying to do what's best for her daughter. With 3 sisters, it usually follows this pattern. Jane is the one with responsibilities, middle sister Catherine holds it together, and the youngest, Margaret, is the troublemaker. The middle sister, Catherine, has to marry an old man for protection and financial reasons, and the younger sister, Margaret, murders him, which was a good thing for Catherine. Catherine does end up getting a love interest, William. The antagonist is Princess Mary, who poisons her brother Edward for the throne and also plots against Jane. Mary is a good contrast to Jane, as Mary actually wants to be in power and wants to be queen, and doesn't care who she hurts in the process. In the first episode, Jane tries to run away after she finds out about having to marry Lord Guildford. She steals her mom's ring and takes her maid. While trying to escape, her maid transforms into an Ethian. Jane is caught while her maid successfully gets away. Edward discovers he's being poisoned early on. He tries to find out who it is, but has to escape before they can kill him. When Jane becomes queen, she's determined to find out what happened to Edward. Jane looks into the cook, finds out the cook was told to lie, then she gets murdered for being an Ethian. Jane finds out Mary and Seymour plotted to kill Edward. She confronts Mary and she chokes Jane, almost leaving her for dead. Jane finally gets evidence that Princess Mary and Lord Seymour were Edward's killers. She goes to arrest them and they're both gone. Her younger sister, Margaret, had tipped them off. The title card changes throughout the show from My Lady Jane to My Queen Jane to back to My Lady Jane when Mary becomes queen. Jane's speech in episode 7 is a great one. She was the one named queen by Edward and it was against her wishes to be queen. She's bound by law to follow orders from the king and has the divine right to rule. She says, "So if I'm a traitor, then so are you," pointing to the crowd. Princess Elizabeth stands up for Jane, betraying her sister Mary. Mary is furious that the crowd is agreeing with Jane and has the public on her side. As Mary is about to have Jane and Guildford killed, Jane and Guildford escape. The epilogue shows Elizabeth as an Ethian, and Jane planning on going back to take the crown from Mary. All three leads have romance be a part of their storylines. All are in arranged marriages, which isn't a surprise. Marie and Louis's wedding scene has them in white, and both of them look young. When discussing marriage, we see Marie and Louis as not one of the most affectionate or loving pairs. Marie seems to have a cordial relationship with him, but she knows how important children are for their marriage. The scene where she has to consummate the marriage has her get some privacy from the people at court. However, everyone discovers how the marriage wasn't consummated. Marie and Louis's relationship can be described as awkward, which makes sense for a teenage romance. She tries to get to know him, but Louis gives short, quick answers, not even wanting to do much in bed. Marie Antoinette's brother is the one that moves the romance along and gets Louis and Marie to sleep together. One moment that sticks out is how Marie Antoinette spends her birthday watching the sunrise without her husband. In addition, she begins to spend a lot of her time at Petit Trianon after Louis gives it to her. When Marie gives birth, it's public. Marie Antoinette wants to feed her child herself, but the baby gets taken away because they have nurses for that. Marie's relationship with Louis has the least romantic chemistry compared to the other two couples, but they do care for one another. Catherine and Peter are enemies to lovers, and even though their relationship starts rocky, they love each other by the end. In the first episode, she's talking about her marriage to Peter and leaving for Russia in excitement. She's excited to marry Peter, and that dream is quickly shattered. She meets Peter and realizes he's a dick. He doesn't care about her opinion, has affairs, and is focused on producing an heir. He doesn't want to know her on a deeper level or develop this passionate love. Peter doesn't come across very smart and doesn't share the same interests as Catherine. She feels like a prisoner and tries to escape. Peter finds her and punishes her. In season 1, Peter burns down the school for girls, saying women are for seating, not reading. After that, Catherine begins planning to overthrow Peter to rule Russia. She has the help of her lady-in-waiting, Mariel, Count Oslo, and Velmentov. A coup is historically accurate, but Peter dies days after he loses the throne. In real life, they aren't a good match, and we're two different people according to numerous historians. When she does give birth, it's public, representing how the heir was more than just Catherine's son. He has responsibility to eventually lead, and it's for the people of Russia. After Leo dies, Catherine and Peter begin to fall in love. Even though Catherine has the kingdom, they're co-parenting and growing closer. Everything falls apart, like mentioned in the season 2 finale, when Catherine finds out about Peter killing her mom from Mariel, and that is after she says Peter is her great love. There's this complexity of Catherine loving Peter, but him killing her mother, and feeling like she needs to kill him. She does stab someone, thinking it was Peter, but it ends up being Peter's stunt double. Peter is sleeping with other women while at court, including Grigor's wife. In the interview mentioned earlier, Elle describes Catherine as romantic, which sticks out to me because she's right. She comes to Russia ready to love Peter, but realizes that isn't going to happen. Then in the second season, she does fall for Peter despite her own feelings about it. She is looking for love and does end up experiencing it. Peter's death is tragic and one of the best scenes in the show. Peter is going to gather troops and his horse falls through the ice. It was a tragic end to the character, and Catherine witnesses the entire thing. After Peter's death, she struggles to live without him. And by the end, you have this ending where she'll never forget Peter, but she's learning to live without him. Jane and Guildford are another example of your classic enemies to lovers trope. Jane is intrigued when she meets him. They have snappy banter and seem to have similar interests. Jane is arranged to marry Guilford by her mother, and that brings resentment. She tries to stall/ruin the wedding by fainting at the altar, but the wedding continues. In their consummation scene, Jane and Guilford fake having sex to have everyone get off their back and leave the room. After everyone leaves, they actually argue about being married. They go through their mishaps, but what brings them together is finding out that Guilford is a horse that changes at night. She makes a deal with him that if she finds a cure, then the marriage will be over. However, she begins to fall in love with him. When she becomes queen, Guilford is supportive of her, but unfortunately Mary exposes Guilford as an Ethian, and that Jane knew. Her mom wants her to say she was under the beast's spell after Mary takes over the throne to save her life, but Jane refuses. She would have had to make a deal with Mary, denounce atheism, and her beast husband. However, Jane calls her mom cold, unloving, and unlovable. She recognizes that Ethians shouldn't be persecuted the way they are, but also doesn't want to do that to the man she loves. Their love story is more than just a marriage, but one where they feel like equal partners, trying to do what's best for one another. When watching Marie Antoinette, there is a distinct look. Designed by Oscar winner Milena Canonero, Marie Antoinette's costumes are beautiful and still talked about today. Regarding Marie's fashion, the colors that seem to represent her are yellows, pinks, and blues. In the beginning of the film, she's dressed in light blues, representing her naivete to the world around her. According to Costume Cinema and Materiality, telling the story of Marie Antoinette through dress, Therése Andersson says, "In this early stage of Marie Antoinette's time at Versailles, the colors worn and applied are light and icy, more sorbet-like. In the middle of the film depicting her party year, her gowns become the most dessert-like in their choice of color and even in cut, with bright yellow, pink, and blue combinations, creating a macaroon effect with the ornamentation of petticoats and skirts. Her dresses are modified in configuration as well and become bolder, with the gowns showing deeper, square-shaped décolletage and more daring garnish. When I think about the film, I think about how everything feels girly and bright. The soundtrack represents her teenage years, having music with a bit of a rock element, which is fun. Marie Antoinette is figuring out who she is in a new place. The music does a great job with bringing this 2000 feel into a movie set in the 1700s. The Great's costuming is my personal favorite, designed by Emma Fryer in season 1 and Sharon Long in season 2 and 3. I love the first yellow dress that Catherine wears, representing her happy demeanor and her excitement to start a new life in Russia. Catherine's pink dress in the season 1 finale is absolutely gorgeous. Her coronation look in season 2, episode 2, is one that sticks in my mind, because she finally has everything she could ever want. The sequins, the gold, the headpiece, it just does a great job of depicting her new position. I really liked this dress in season 2, episode 5, in particular the neckline. Another favorite look of mine was in season 2, episode 6, with this beautiful yellow dress that just complements Elle Fanning really well. Finally, I can't forget the dark green dress with the pink bows from season 2, episode 9. For season 3, Sharon Long tells W Magazine how she approached dressing Catherine this season. She's in love, she's a mother, and she's running a country, Long says, and her dresses during this time reflect that. I wanted them to be more complex with florals and whimsy because she's in love. Catherine's first standout look of the season comes in episode 2, when she entertains the UK and American ambassadors, both vying for Russia's support in the Revolutionary War. Catherine holds a dinner for her guests and attends in a white gown embroidered with colorful florals, an ensemble that could have been plucked from the set of Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. That was probably as flamboyant as I've gone with her at that point. Long says of the confection, "I wanted her to look both powerful and whimsical because she's flirting with the ambassadors. I went as pale as I could, so it would almost look like flesh, and then we covered it with strong motifs of flowers and animals." When I think about Catherine the Great, the colors that I associate with her is hot pink, green, and gold. Jane's costuming feels different from the previous two with more blues and patterns. Designed by Stephanie Cawley, when she's seen in episode 1, she's wearing a blue gown with a cape. It's a flattering color against the naturistic background. We see patterns that seem to demonstrate how everything feels so vibrant and rich. Jane's gowns, when she becomes queen, were my personal favorite. The colors I associate with Jane are gold, blue, and white. Now, being queen sounds fun in theory, but history has shown how having that much power comes with its drawbacks. All 3 women were in a powerful position at a young age, and are having to navigate the typical struggles girls go through in the eyes of many. Through the film Marie Antoinette, and the television shows The Great and My Lady Jane, we see them navigate the misogyny of the time period, their relationship with their parents, their relationship with their family members, having to become a wife and or mother, and stand up for what they believe in. They don't get the privacy or the space to make mistakes. I might not be a queen from the 17th century, but God, I do know how it feels to cry when life doesn't go your way, or laugh when you're surrounded by the people you love. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video.